Joining
this
us
is
now.
BYUtv.
Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline is Riley Nelson, former BYU quarterback.
Lots of yelling, Riley.
There, obviously, he can tell. All right, Riley. The the feeling of the show. Hey, it's been set up in here. It's been set. It's crazy in Studio B. What do you think? You get to guarantee a BYU win against LSU or Utah. Which are you choosing and why?
All right, so I'm going to play both sides of the argument before I give you my my answer.
Okay.
All right. So here's one thing. So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about other top program wins, right? Among those, probably Detmer beating Miami. Now, I don't know if LSU is going to be ranked number one, and they're definitely not coming to Provo. So I don't know if a win against LSU will be as memorable as that one, but I think about those other big-time program wins and what that meant to the program. Now, on the other side, here's a little bit of history, and I'm sure you guys have done this. So as we look, we've started off the 2010s decade 0-6, which means that we've already lost the decade. The 2000s decade was 5-5. The 90s, interestingly enough, was 5-5. The 80s was 9-1. The 70s was 7-3 in favor of BYU. So we've gone BYU's gone 7-3 in the 70s, 9-1 in the 80s, 5-5 in the 90s, 5-5 in the 2000s, and we've already lost. We've already lost the 20 teens. Best case scenario for us is losing it 4-6. So, do you want that Detmer-esque, Miami coming in here type win? I don't know if, with it being at a neutral site, not sure how good LSU is going to be. I mean, LSU is always going to have the excuse that Orgeron is a new coach. They don't really have things rolling. He doesn't have his recruits in there. So I don't know if it will be as impactful for Miami. Also, we have not given up a decade. We've just given up a decade for the first time in 40 years to Utah. So for all those reasons, my answer is I'll take the guaranteed win against Utah because we have to claw our way back. Like, in all honesty, to save face, we have to win the next four, I think, in the rivalry. To gain back some of those things and maintain what I still believe. You look at the last 40 years, it's still owned by BYU, and we can make it 50 if we can claw back and get at least 4 wins in this decade. So I'm taking the guaranteed win against Utah. I think that means more to the program. I think it means more to the rivalry. I think it will mean more to recruiting. That's the other thing is we're recruiting battle with Utah. We're not necessarily battling for recruits against LSU. So and besides that, it was so close last year. It's Kalani's old school. Let's get the monkey off his back now. So for all those reasons, I'm taking Utah with the guarantee.
I totally understand all the logic around LSU, but the 6 in a row just puts me over the top. Like, that's got to stop. That's got to stop. It really does. So since you stopped playing, how has the rivalry changed for you, for better or worse?
So I don't think people will be happy to. It's actually gotten better. Like, it's gotten a lot softer, I guess I should say, for a couple of reasons. One, I actually at Coach Edwards' funeral, I had a good long chat with Coach Whittingham, and he's not that bad of a guy, unfortunately, right? You want him to be a jerk, and and he wasn't. So we were there, and we shared some good memories about Coach Edwards and talked about old times and all that. Other things have happened. I played with Stephen Covey, who played at BYU. His little brother, Britton, had incredible success at Utah. And because I'm so close with that family and know Britton, I was happy to see that success. So it's kind of softened. Now, part of the other reason is that I've always enjoyed Utah falling short at the end of the Pac-12 season every year. So I guess that my bitterness has been held in check by the fact that they haven't reached ultimate success despite beating us. It's not like they've gone on to do incredible things, and we've kind of ended the seasons on similar planes. So it's gotten a little bit less nasty. In fact, the other day, my wife asked if our son wanted to go to Utah, would I let him? And I actually paused for a second before saying no. So I don't know what's happening to me.
You've gotten soft, Riley.
I don't know what's happening to me, but it doesn't feel as bad as it did when I was playing.
There was a hesitation for a moment. Wow.
Well, the 6 in a row have done that.
Yeah.
If it's 50-50 and there's some rivalry moments and there's a little angst, now it's fun again, right? I wouldn't say that it's fun right now because BYU's lost 6 in a row. There's nothing fun
Now,
about that.
the reason I take LSU with the guaranteed win is because BYU will be a significant underdog in that game. The Cougars have a better chance of beating Utah head-to-head, right?
Yeah, 1,000%. LSU is going to be ranked in this game.
Exactly.
They'll be top
So,
15.
I mean, Riley, how does that factor into it? Because I look at the LSU game as Oklahoma 2009 at Jerry's World just outside Dallas, Texas, and what that meant to BYU. So what would a win against LSU, because you were around, Max, you talked to him about that Oklahoma game.
You were in that. You were on the sidelines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What did that mean for the program?
So I think there's two ways to look at it. I think internally for the fans, for BYU's ability to recruit and kind of use that as a banner, I think it meant a great deal. The other reason, it's interesting you bring that up, and that's a very valid point, and I think a win over LSU would have a very similar impact from that standpoint. When I was thinking about the LSU win, I was thinking it did us more good on a national scale. We are still vying. There will be another conference realignment here in the next few years. Now, how do you define few? I don't know. But there's going to be another shakeup eventually. And will an LSU win make a huge impact for BYU on that national scale? And the tough thing, the reason why I wouldn't take the guarantee against LSU is because I don't know, regardless of how Utah does this year, breaking this 6-game losing streak is going to mean something. If BYU beats LSU, similar to the Michigan State win last year, right, and then kind of they have an underwhelming season, it doesn't do, while it's great for the players and BYU fans like it, it doesn't do a whole lot for us on a national scale.
I think it depends on the ranking and whatnot, too. Michigan State was unranked. That played into this. Had they been ranked 3rd, maybe it would have had more oomph there. Oklahoma went 8-5, and Landry Jones. But, it changes things. But I want to ask you this, because this has come up recently given the angst of the Utah losing streak. How much does the result of the Utah game play into the overall success of a season? Because there are those fans that are like, if we go 1-12 but we beat Utah, it's a great year. Which I'm like, what? No, that's a terrible idea. But there's some interest to that idea of, hey, beating Utah would change maybe the feeling about the season independent of what happens.
Yeah, it by no means makes or breaks the season. I think both programs are have matured beyond a point where a single game is going to make or break it for the program and those fans. And honestly, I hear that same thing. I hear fans say that, and I don't think any serious fan means that. I don't think they're being sincere when they say that. So, but at the same thing, why do all of us feel the need so badly to break this 6-0 streak? If it is just kind of one game, and that one game wouldn't make or break the season, why do we have such bad taste in our mouth? The fact that we've lost 6, especially when 5 of those 6 have come down to the last play or last drive of the game. It's not like we've been blown out. We did have the embarrassment in 2011, but other than that, each of these games could have gone either way, and they just happened to bounce Utah's way. So it's not like there's a big disparity between the programs. Utah's just happened to have a few more plays go their way in these tight games, and so I'll say this. I would weight it. One game wouldn't make for the whole 12-game season, but it would make up for 3. So, let's say that BYU goes 6-6 and beats Utah. I would say that probably feels more like an 8 or a 9-win season versus the actual 6-game, 6-win season. I'm not predicting that, but I'm trying to portray the weight of what a Utah win would mean.
Desperation does crazy things emotionally, right? And this conversation has become emotion versus logic. And the emotion is strong in this one because it's Utah and because it's 6 in a row.
No question. Now, the other thing is here's what I say. I say we beat Utah and then cheer for them to make some noise, to actually let's beat them this year. And then I cheer for Utah to actually break through in the Pac-12 South and make it to the Pac-12 championship game, and be maybe a playoff contender. I would love for BYU to do that, and I think that's, there's an outside shot of a possibility there, but just by virtue of being in a P5 conference, Utah is going to be closer to that conversation than we are. And if similar to the basketball team beating Gonzaga this year, think what that meant to the program. And I think that if we can beat a good Utah team and they can go on to have some success, I think that carries more weight in the program. But you are right. The kind of emotions that are involved for this makes it so difficult to actually weight logically what that win would mean.
Now,
it's logic versus emotion.
Which team is more likely? Let's just step away for a second. Which team is more likely to make a prominent national run, LSU or Utah?
Utah, because Alabama's in the way. But yeah, USC's in the way for Utah.
The same thing.
Sam Darnold's amazing. Like, USC is probably going to be a top 5 team to start the season.
That's true, but Utah always plays USC well. And now I haven't paid close enough attention to know what Utah's got coming back, and I agree, USC is going to be a juggernaut, but all they got to do, all it takes is one down game. Utah always plays USC close. And, all it takes is an upset like that, and Utah's making more. I agree that, unfortunately for LSU, the gap between them and the top of the SEC is much wider than the gap is between Utah and the top of the Pac-12.
Riley Nelson with us on BYU Sports Nation, talking BYU against LSU and Utah. If you could guarantee one win, which would you choose and why? Let's change gears just a little bit. I want to talk about Kalani Sitake and what he has meant to this BYU program in the last year and a half that he has been the head coach officially. How have things changed in your circles, in your conversations, and what you are seeing with BYU football since he has taken over as the head coach?
I think he's maintained a level of football excellence. Speaking purely on the field, granted they go about it in different ways, but but as far as the standards that were set up or that Coach took over, I think he's continued to take those and increase them and build on them and build the character of the program, fill it with top-tier talent, and do those things. And so, honestly, from an actual X's and O's standpoint, while they have different styles, I don't think it's changed much. Honestly, I think Coach Mendenhall had a good thing going, and those 8-5 seasons were just kind of had some tough losses in there. And anyway, but from the other perspective, from the fan fest and the access that he gives, I mean, we all saw that photo of him at 10:30 at night waiting to sign the last autograph at the Davis County Fan Fest. But that's just Kalani being Kalani. And from a fan standpoint, from an interest standpoint, from your kind of passive football observer, that means a lot. Does it mean a ton on Saturdays? We'd have to have a longer conversation about that. I'm not convinced, but it never hurts to garnish goodwill and to build morale around a program and its fans.
Absolutely.
So I would say that's the number one biggest difference.
Okay, you had 2 years in the Mountain West, 2 years in as an independent. In your time at BYU, if I remember correctly, or 1 year independent.
Yeah,
Mountain West.
You're right.
Yeah,
it was 2 and 2.
So the idea between independence and these tough schedules and Mountain West, and they were tough, but maybe not as tough, right? Is there something to the idea of maybe winning 9 in independence is equal to 10 or 11 as a Mountain West team? How do you feel about that idea?
No question, because in the Mountain West, BYU every year had at least, I mean, we were going to beat UNLV, we were going to beat New Mexico, we were going to beat Colorado State. Who else? We were going to beat Wyoming. There's 4 right off the bat, and I know I'm forgetting another couple of kind of cake wins, and that's not to diminish the Mountain West. That was just the nature of it. That we had created a gap in talent so large that even if we were not even if we didn't have our best year, there was half years. There was 5 games out of 12 that were guaranteed wins, and so then you got to win another. 4 or 5 competitive games in which you're more evenly matched and more competitive. So the other thing I was talking about this with a friend who was asking me about the numbers in the post-Mountain West era, and you look back and no matter who was under center, this is from a quarterback standpoint, but no matter who was under center when we were playing New Mexico, UNLV, Hawaii, Wyoming, the quarterback was going to throw for 303 touchdowns, and it would have been nice. I look back and I think it would have been nice to have those games that kind of pad your stats and pad your numbers, but I think there is something to it. Now, you could argue the same thing, that in our independent schedule we have those same fluff games built in. Unfortunately, it's a 1AA game, or it's like an Idaho or something like that. So they're still built in there, and they don't carry the weight of a conference win. But I would probably agree with that statement, though, just by virtue that in a conference you get. One year you get them at home, the next year you go to their place, and you know they're always coming back to your home the year after that. In independence, all of our games against our toughest competition, whether we're evenly matched or maybe a little bit outmatched, have been on the road, and I don't think you can discredit that.
Riley, great stuff, except for the part where you agreed with Jerem. It was fantastic, man.
It's ebb and flows. The pendulum always swings back, so just wait till next time I'm on.
You got it, man. We appreciate the